Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
This sponsorship brought to you by Success in Hiring. Are you struggling with recruiting, hiring, and retaining the right candidates for your business? I know the challenges you face every day running your business. Let me help you by sharing my Success in Hiring system with you. It is a 5-part series where we will cover these 5 areas. 1, recruiting. Number 2, interviewing. Number 3, hiring. Number 4, onboarding. And number 5, coaching. You will receive 1 video each day along with the downloadable resources to make it easy to implement the areas we covered that day. The best part of the series, it is totally free. Why? Because my goal is to help business owners succeed in business and life. To receive the series, go to chargepodcast.com and click on the Success in Hiring link. Welcome, Chargers. We're glad to have you back again this week for another great guest. You know, we've been setting up this 4th quarter to bring guests on with experts that really will make you think and really to set yourself up for success in 2022. It's hard to believe it's going to be here before we know it, but now's the time about really thinking about what do you want to do next year to set yourself up for success. And I think we've found that guest again that's going to make you think. His name is Steve Hoffman. Captain Hoff is the captain and CEO of Founderspace. He's one of the world's leading startup accelerators. Founderspace was ranked the #1 incubator for overseas startups by Forbes and Entrepreneur Magazines. Hoffman is also a venture investor, serial entrepreneur, and an author of several award-winning books. These include Make Elephants Fly, Surviving the Startup, and The 5 Forces. Hoffman was founder and chairman of the Producers Guild Silicon Valley chapter, served on the board of governors of the New Media Council, and was founding member of the Academy of Television's Interactive Media Group. Steve, it is great to have you on the Charge Podcast. Welcome.
It is fantastic to be here.
Well, you've done a lot of different things, and I love having entrepreneurs on, and you're kind of now with that founder space, so I can't wait to really dig into that and get that information from you. But I always love my audience first to get to know the person, Steve. We share a lot in our bio, but really, what was your path from what you was kind of started out doing to now with the founder space and with some of the venture business that you're doing?
Well, I like to say I've had more careers than cats have had lives. So I've done a lot of things in my life. I worked in the film business. I actually worked in Hollywood. I rose up to be a television development executive. Then I jumped over to Japan and I was designing games and gaming systems. Then I went back to San Francisco and I launched my first company, which was a gaming startup. In my career, I also did voice acting, animation. I was an electrical engineer. I did so many different things, but really my passion has always been creating something new. And every company I've done, and I've done 2 bootstrap startups and 3 venture funded startups, and all of them have been about how to bring new things into the world, things that people can use, things that benefit society, and really build and help other entrepreneurs to do the same.
Well, that is excellent. And that's really going to be great because you heard me set up this podcast and really with this whole 4th quarter, we've been trying to get guests on that will really make people think about what do they want to do for themselves in 2022. And for some of them, it may not be starting a business, but maybe it's how they want to work on different areas of their life to really make that difference. And I think that really is so important. So I think probably a good place to start because you've had a lot of different areas of expertise, but let's really key in. What inspired you to start Founderspace and what is really the focus and the purpose behind it?
So what inspired me, I finished my third venture funded startup in Silicon Valley, just taking a break, just to have time off. And my friends, they started to come to me and they're like, Steve, how did you raise the money? How do I put together an investor deck? Is my business model, do you think this will work? And as I answered their questions, I saw their eyes light up. I became, excited by helping them achieve their dreams as much as I was about doing my own startups. And so I started to take the answers I gave them, post them on my blog. I called it Founder Space. And then more and more entrepreneurs started to come to me that weren't my friends, people I didn't know, asking for help. And one thing led to another. And I decided, I would love to help as many entrepreneurs as possible. So in San Francisco, we got a basement. We started in the basement of this big building, and we started running our Founder Space Accelerator. And before long, we had people from all over the world. They were landing in Silicon Valley. This was over a decade ago. And they were coming there because, they had heard of the Silicon Valley magic. They wanted to launch their companies. And I started to help them. And then they started to invite me abroad. So I'd go to South Korea, I'd go to Taiwan, I'd go to Europe, I'd go to China, Australia. And we started to collaborate with other incubators and accelerators all over the world to run programs for entrepreneurs. And I love it because it allows me to see how innovation is happening all over the globe. I meet really smart people. And then I am passionate about entrepreneurs who really want to take they're not just doing a company to get an exit, to get that, the big payoff, the $1 billion payoff. They are doing a company because they really believe that they can create something the world needs that will benefit people. These are purpose-driven companies. They're not nonprofits, they're for-profit companies in general. And I actually think for-profit companies can have a much bigger impact because honestly, there's a role for nonprofits because some things you cannot make a profit on, helping
Right.
people. But if you can make a profit, you are self-sustaining. You don't always need to go back to donors. If you can make a profit and scale, grow your business, you can have an enormous impact. And we have seen this with lots of companies, from Hint, the water, the company that makes the flavored water, because they didn't want people drinking sugar sodas and all these things that were bad for them. For Patagonia, which, started that whole trend of environmental friendly clothing. So many companies out there now, even the biggest corporations in the world are moving in this direction. So I want to help entrepreneurs when they start their company to have that mindset, that way of looking at the world, and that mission-driven philosophy.
That is excellent. And I love that we have you on right now because it's a great time. Because as you know, I have quite a few entrepreneurs that listen to my podcast, and some of them have their business. And the thing I would tell them, keep listening because it's about re-energizing your business. And some of the conversations we have may help them really determine how can they really get their business to be more purpose-driven. And of course, then we have entrepreneurs that want to become entrepreneurs, and they have to get over that fear side and really move forward and say, yes, 2022 is the year that I'm going to do it. So I think my next question I want to really ask you is, what do you think the most valuable lesson that entrepreneurs can really learn as they're thinking about really going into this business? And I would tell people, I think this probably will apply. I don't know what your answer is, but it will apply to even if you're already an entrepreneur.
Yes. So I think the most valuable thing you can do if you want to be successful, let me start just with practical business advice.
Sure.
So in practical business advice, your entrepreneur's job is not to just come up with a brilliant idea, because there are lots of brilliant ideas out there that make terrible businesses. I know people and they have these amazing ideas, but they're not practical. There's no demand out there for the product or service. So instead of starting with some abstract idea that you want to do, a really great way to start a business is search for demand. I think entrepreneurs' number one job when they start a company, if they want it to be successful, is search where's their demand in the world. People need something. So if you can fill that need, you're doing a good thing, right? If they're, whatever their need is, if it's to grow their company, if it's to become more profitable, if it's to make the world a better place, whatever it is, go into the world and start to look for what I call pent up pockets of demand. And there are always new ones being formed because the world is always changing. So it's not a static place. And your job is sort of, the entrepreneur's job is like an oil wildcatter where you're sinking wells. A lot of them will come up dry, each one. But when you hit a gusher, you know it, because that's what propels your business. Suddenly you hit something, people are going, I got to have that. I got to have that. Can you get that to me? Can you actually do that for me? Nobody else seems to be able to do it. Then you know you have a business. Number two, the second most important thing that I like to tell entrepreneurs is think of your business model. If you really want to have a business that grows, not a business that kind of, goes up and down or just grows very, very slowly, but you want one that grows rapidly, which are the type of ones, I'm a venture investor that I look to fund. What you need is recurring revenue. And I will tell you, there's nothing like recurring revenue. So the point is, when you get a customer in, when you acquire a customer, which is the hardest thing you do in any business, is acquiring new customers. You get them, you never let go. You never let go. And how do you not let go? You don't let go because you found a way to keep providing value to them over and over and over so that they're using your product or service continually. And every time they do, you're giving them value. In return, of course, if you're giving them value, they're going to make you profitable in the long run. That's how it works. So if you can get that dynamic, and you look at all the biggest companies in the world, all of them, almost everyone has this model. The ones that acquire a customer once, which is really expensive, then they sell them something or do a service for them, and that customer disappears, really hard to grow your business. Then you have to go and search for a new one, and they keep disappearing. No, you got to find a way to build what I call an ecosystem, where the more they participate, the more value they get, and the more value they give to all the other participants. Those are great businesses. And then number three is the people. Surround yourself with amazing people. Like it's, if you have to do one thing as CEO of the company, one thing, it's just surround yourself with amazing people. Because if you do, they will do the rest. And it's really hard to find amazing people. But Gary, like you teach, if you are purpose-driven, if you have a vision and a mission beyond, oh, I'm just going to pay you, we're going to make some money, it's transactional. If you have a bigger vision, that's what gets people. That's why people leave, cushy jobs at Microsoft or Google where they're earning six figures and actually join a risky startup or a small business, because they feel like, I could be so much more valuable here. I can actually build something from the ground up. It can become part of it. So as the leader of your company, you have to instill this in the people you bring in.
Wow, great information there. And I knew the answer would apply to startup entrepreneurs, but it also applies to anyone that's in business today. Because what they really need to do is they need to search if they're not growing, and they found out now that their business maybe is actually, they're not getting the revenues that they want. Where is the pockets of demand that they need to find in their business?
Yes.
So it applies to them. It applies to what you said about the business model. Maybe you need to look at your business model differently. Like retail stores. If the only thing you've got is you're waiting for somebody to walk in the door and walk out, and you see that's going down, where can you create a recurring revenue model? Maybe you could create a subscription model to your business, and then being able to provide a service quarterly, monthly. You determine, but think differently. And that's what I'm really trying to express to people this quarter. It's about thinking differently and then starting to implement in 2022. And you can start putting that model together. And then you talk about people. And man, what a number one thing there is, because if you don't have the right people, then of course they can't provide the great customer service. Plus, if you don't have amazing people, you're not making a difference. Plus, today, if you don't have amazing people and you don't have a purpose behind it, they're leaving you, because the great resignation is right now.
It's happening.
So I just so glad that you shared that, because I just want people to realize what you shared works for startups. But even if you're not a startup, if you've been in business 5, 10, 15 years, go back and look at those for your own business and what can make a difference in those.
Yeah. And I'll do an eye opener for your audience. Most businesses don't last longer than 30 years. There are very few businesses that are over 100 years old. So all those big companies that we thought were indestructible, that were dominant, that had been so innovative, like Sears Roebuck, Sears stores were everywhere.
Yep.
They pioneered direct, catalog marketing and sales. They totally remade the retail industry. They don't exist anymore. We have Amazon instead. Amazon ate their lunch and everybody else's lunch. So like you were saying, if you're in a retail store, you have to see what's coming. The world is changing. How people buy is changing, how people act. And even if you're Amazon, like Jeff Bezos just said, his business probably won't be around in 100 years. He doesn't have an illusion, unless they keep changing, are one of those rare businesses that can adapt and grow, you're out. So
that's for sure. I think that's so important. And I know in your experience, you've seen a lot of startups fail. So what do you see the ones that succeed? What do they do differently? Because I think this will play right into the other part that we shared with them and help other businesses that are already operating also.
So startups tend to fail. Most startups fail not by trying too many different things, but by sticking with the same thing too long. And this is startups and existing businesses. It's either like if you have a business and you're doing something and it's not quite working, you feel like Sisyphus rolling a boulder up a hill and just have it roll down and roll it up and have it. If that's your business and it's always a struggle, something is fundamentally wrong. You should just stop what you're doing and reevaluate everything, question everything you're doing and figure out a new path. Because I've seen so many entrepreneurs and they've spent a lot of their money, gone into debt to do it. They borrowed money from family and friends, and they might have spent years on this product and it's not working. I was like, has this ever worked? Like, did it ever work? And they're like, no, if I just stick with it a little longer, it'll work. If I just try, something else, it'll work. Almost never happens. And this is a lesson I can give your audience. If you want to know if your idea really works, go ask 100 people and target the real customer. First, you have to figure out who is the person who most needs what I have. Go to 100 of them and ask them. And if every single one of those people says, that's good, that's good, that's really nice, or that's interesting. If they all say that, you are dead. You have no business at all because anybody's going to say, that's nice, that's good, that's interesting. That's not what you want to hear. If people are saying that, it's just being polite. Right. What you have to hear from those, at least some of those people, at least, a good chunk of those people, at least 25% is, oh my God, I need that. I need it now. How can I get it? Can you get it to me? What do I have to do? They have to be chomping at the bit to get what you have. And if you don't get that reaction, you really don't have a business. This is where the good entrepreneurs, they'll test all these different ideas and markets that they have, testing each one. And if they don't get that reaction right away, they're on to the next thing and they're testing again. The ones who fail, stick with it. Even when they get that reaction, they're like, people like it. They say it's good, but they're not really buying. And, but we're going to add some features. We're going to try to, doesn't cut it. I'll give you a perfect example. On your phone, when you download a new application, you download the application, you go, oh, that app's nice. Then you forget about it. A month later, delete. Why is that app on my phone? Get rid of it. People don't need nice products. They don't need good products. They need absolutely great products, like products they're so passionate about. And if you don't have that, you have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I love it. It goes back to really a philosophy I was told when I got into the mobile phone business, Steve, was write down 100 people that you can sell your services to. And that's the people you go talk to. And of course, I got turned down by a lot of those at first because it was brand new and they didn't even know what mobile phones were. But, over time they bought it. But the thing that you're saying is I had 10 or 20 of those that purchased right away. I need that. And that's when I knew this mobile phone industry, when my dad told me I was crazy getting into it, that I was on to something.
You knew, and you had tried it, right? You were like, oh, this is amazing. Like, this is like, I could walk around and talk on the phone like in those days, and those people who actually tried it, they were like, wow, this is amazing. So it's like Airbnb when they started, all the venture people said, that's a crazy idea. Nobody will let strangers in their home. They could be serial killers. But Airbnb, they were running it themselves, and they saw that people loved it. They loved, hosting people, getting the money, meeting people. So they knew it was working. You don't have to have everybody in the world say it's great, but you have to have the people who think it's great, think it's really great.
And you really can save yourself a lot of headache if you do some test marketing before you just go do everything.
Exactly.
And then you hope it works. And that's, I'm sure, the challenge is, and it kind of really comes into my next question, is what you've seen as some of those biggest myths that people really have about starting, launching a startup.
So one of the biggest myths I see is that people think the idea is so important. And they fixate on, I can't do a startup until I have the right idea. I can't, and once they have the right idea, they don't want to let go. So first of all, what's more important than an idea is a direction. You pick an area that you think that you can make a big difference in. It could be, I want to make the fishing industry more sustainable, or I want to make restaurants more economical so that, they don't die in a downturn like, COVID had. Or I want to make retail more profitable for the people still in retail. You pick a direction. You don't have to have all the answers at the beginning, because you won't. Now, I'll give you an example. So there's a company that all of us know. It's called YouTube. When YouTube started, they were a video dating site. A video dating site. Now, most people don't know this, but as we all know, nobody likes to video date. So they were failing. And when they were failing, they had a video that they had made, and they wanted to share it just with their friends. And videos were large files, very, there's no cloud thing, there's no Dropbox or any of these things in those days. So they took that video, they uploaded it to their dating site, and then they shared the link. That simple thing, that one simple thing. And boom, YouTube, it exploded because so many people needed that. But their original idea was video dating. And Google's original idea was a search engine just for academics to find research papers. Very small idea. They thought there would be a nonprofit. Slack that everybody uses today, they were originally a game. All these companies, their first idea didn't even work. And they're some of the biggest companies we know. So I'm telling entrepreneurs out there, don't worry about your idea. Get out there, think of an area where you want to make change, and then it will be a process of discovery. So the biggest myth is the idea matters.
Yeah, that is so true. And it's about, don't worry about the complete direction, but get started in a direction and then really move forward with it in each area. And that's a big one. Well, we're coming up that time where I'm going to have to let you go. I love this conversation, so I can continue it for a while, but I still have one, because thinking about those entrepreneurs and what we've been discussing throughout is, what do you think is the most important thing for entrepreneurs to really do first? Because they get so tied up that it has to be everything. And then, of course, they really stagnate themselves because they don't get started. So what is that important thing for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I will give you the order in which entrepreneurs should do things. And I write about this in my book, Surviving a Startup. So number one, the first thing you do is build your team. 90% of your time put into finding the right people. Who are the people that have the skill sets you need to actually execute? Because execution is the hard part. And like I said before, your idea is probably wrong, so don't worry about it. Get the team on board, pick a direction, start moving. Number two, don't go out and raise money or anything like that. Engage with your customers. Engage with the customers, learn as much as possible, as fast as possible. Then run experiments. Number three, experiment with your customers, trying different ideas, different products and services that they could need, until you hit one that all of a sudden you get that reaction I talked about, where people are just nuts over it. When you hit that point, get the data you got from that experiment, go to investors, raise capital, and that's how you grow a company.
That is excellent and great information for everyone to think about. And even if you're in the process and you've done it, who's the people on your team that really you need to change? And that is not in making your company better. And then what can you do? If you've already got customers, now engage them in some of those thoughts that you may have, and find out, with those experiments, maybe it'll really take off for you. So Steve, some great information you shared. I truly appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise. Share with them now how they can get to your website, and then also any of your books. I'm sure it's probably on the website that they can pick up, or even wherever they want to buy books, I'm sure they're available.
Oh yeah, sure. So if you want to find me, just go to founderspace.com. So founderspace.com, you can contact me there. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm on all the social networks. And if you want my books, Surviving a Startup, Make Elephants Fly, The 5 Forces, they are all there on the site. We also have a podcast, which Gary has been on. He's been our guest. He's amazing, as you all know. And we have lots of free resources for entrepreneurs. You can submit your business plan for funding to join our accelerator. You can get all our videos. It's all there.
Well, check that out, because I think that can be a valuable resource, especially if you're thinking about getting started and you're really wanting to be that entrepreneur. And for the entrepreneurs maybe that are struggling, that's listening, Steve's given us a bucket full of information of really how we can change our company going in 2022. And I know he's got a lot of great resources. I've checked that out myself. Now, Steve, before you go, I have 3 questions that I ask every guest. And the first one, of course, is Charge. That's the name of the podcast. But it's create habits around real goals every day. What habit do you think has led to success in your life?
So the habit that's led to success for me is to question everything, not to accept the status quo, even about my own life and my own choices. Am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? Is this the priorities I should have? Is this meaningful?
That is excellent. When we talk about, I have an acronym called SPA also, and I talk about this all the time, a simple positive action. What's a simple positive action you take every day to get the results you want?
A simple positive action I take is that I look at the people around me and I imagine what they need, not what I need from them, but what they need to really feel good, to perform well. And I go ask them questions like, how you doing? Do you have everything you need? What are you thinking? What are you planning? Just simple questions. You make conversation, you learn a lot, and you can help the people around you.
Excellent. And the last question for you is your biggest life lesson. What did you learn from it?
My biggest life lesson is that, no matter how hard you try, no matter how many hours you put into something, if you are not headed in the right direction, it doesn't matter. So you can work all day and all night on a problem going the wrong way, and it doesn't matter. Really, what's more important than the amount of time a CEO puts in is the thought a CEO puts in, the understanding a CEO has to pick the right direction. That, if you do that and you can lead your company in the right direction, you don't have to work endless hours. You can spend time with your family, your friends, your community, all those other things, have a balanced life and still be very successful.
Well, we know why we call you Captain Hoff now. You've given some great information, Captain, and I truly appreciate it, Steve, that you came on the Charge podcast, sharing with our listeners. Share with them again that website address that they can get all your great information.
Founderspace.com.
Now, entrepreneurs, your challenges and chargers that's listening to this podcast. Now, there was a lot of information given, but I think the thing that you have to do between now and the end of the year is give some thought and really think about what's your right direction. Steve can't tell you that. I can't tell you that. Only you know what that is. But the thing is, you've got to give yourself some time and space to really give it some thought versus saying, I'm going to do this because it's the moment notice. No, you really got to feel it, and you got to know that's what's right for you. So that's the action I give you. And then I would tell you, with anyone that's listening to the podcast, I'm sure you know someone that would benefit from this podcast. Share that with them. All you got to do is go to your podcast app. There's 3 little dots there, hit share, and you can send them an easy link on text message for them to listen to it, and it'll make a real difference for them. Chargers, we're going to be back next week with another great guest. Again, I'm so glad that Steve said yes to come on the podcast. Come back and see us next week, and we'll make you think again and really think about, how do you want to move forward in 2022? Make it a great day.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.